Also, the final vote tabulations came out. By round 3, Zohran wins 56% of the vote, with Andrew Cuomo receiving 44% after everyone was crossed out. Okay. With Zohran receiving 102,000, with Andrew Cuomo receiving 219,000. It's still not enough. Thank God for his resounding second highest win in New York City mayoral primary history. It is pretty crazy, though, that Zohran's first round rank 1 voters was still higher than Andrew Cuomo's final votes with all of the additional ranks. You're reading it wrong. It was a transferred vote. What do you mean? Wait, am I wrong? By round 3, everyone got knocked out, and Zohran received 100,000 plus votes, like 100,000 votes, almost 100,000 votes, and Andrew Cuomo received what, 378,000 to 428,000, 100,000 votes. Zohran got 100K votes, transferred to 55K. Washington is broken and the system is rigged. Colin Allred is back.
Been a lot of things.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, I don't want to hear from Colin Allred. Sorry. Eric Adams got 750K in the general election. Yeah, but that's the general. Eric Adams got, I think, less votes than Zohran did in the final vote tabulation than Zohran did in rank 1, like round 1 of ranked choice voting. And yeah, I talked about this already. Let's add to this. Adams won by 7,200 votes, and Nancy Pelosi promptly invited him as a featured guest to brief congressional Democrats on messaging strategy. Zohran won by 116,000 votes, and Hakeem Jeffries is basically insisting he's never heard of him. When Eric Adams won the Democratic primary in the mayoral race, the same thing that Zohran just won, he was propped up as a national figure. Nate Silver was literally talking about how he should be the president. He should run as president in the Democratic Party. Mamdani put up FDR numbers on and Demelites refused to endorse him because he won't toe the line on Israel. They'll couch it squishy and mopey, heeding concerns for Jewish voters and liberalese, but it's 100% about Mamdani's refusal to spout Israel has a right to defend itself problem. Some people are saying it's not just about Israel. They think it's like socialism as well. But I think it's mostly about Israel. I don't think Brad Lander will be getting this level of fucking animosity when there are a lot of, Brad Lander himself was a DSA guy until 2023. And Brad Lander also had a bunch of progressive policies, maybe not to the same extent as Zohran Mamdani, but, you know. Yeah, Cuomo actually wound up with 24K more votes than Adams got in 2021 when he won the final round narrowly. Mamdani just transformed the electorate. Zohran got 86% of Brad Lander's votes. Wait, no. No, it's all the people who rank Zohran over Cuomo. Yeah. I want to mention something here, but like, people might get mad at me for saying this, but I don't think Brad Lander is a liberal. He's a liberal Zionist, but I don't think he's a liberal. He was a DSA guy for most of his life. I mean, it's okay to say he's a liberal, to be like, look at the liberal socialist allegiance, like this is what it's supposed to look like, but like he was a DSA guy, you know? He's just nerd maxing. So a lot of people think he's got liberal aesthetics. Anyway, but yeah.
In the meantime, Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani scores a huge win over Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary, widening the gap after the results of ranked choice voting were officially computed by the Board of Elections.
Political reporter Marsha Kramer is here with more. Marsha.
Well, Dick and Jess, this could be one of the most unusual elections the city has ever seen, because the charismatic 33-year-old will not only have to face off against a sitting mayor running as an independent and a slew of others who are...
I've been at the DSA enough to spot a sock them who left the DSA for being too far left. I mean, I don't think he left the DSA for being too far left. I think he left the DSA because of Israel. And even then, he's a interesting dude. And the reason why I think he's an interesting dude is because I don't know if you guys know this, but we've covered some of his background here, and like a lot of the opposition, like a lot of the oppo research done on his background actually talked about how many dangerous radicals his office associated with, and he himself associated with, Linda Sarsour being one example. Having actual anti-Zionist Jews come out of his tutelage. And even, like, it was basically like a breeding ground for anti-Zionist Jews, and also anti-Zionist, scarier than anti-Zionist Jews, anti-Zionist Muslims as well. So, like, you normally, you clearly are not that much of a lunatic or a rabid Israel defender if you have friendships and associations like that. Unusual, you and the people who think like you see this win as unusual. Intelligent, empathetic people see it as inevitable. Wait, what? I don't think you understood anything I was talking about here. What are you talking about? What? No, what I was talking about unusual is, like, normally when someone is a liberal Zionist, they got the yellow ribbon on their Twitter account, and they basically regurgitate Kahanist sentiment, okay? Brad Lander is not like that at all. He is a liberal Zionist, but he's like in the Bernie camp. He's a liberal Zionist who associates with regular frequency. Oh, that's what the reporter said. I said that too. Sorry. Okay, that's why. That was where my confusion is. My confusion comes from the fact that I also use the term unusual, so I thought the chatter was addressing me and not Marsha Kramer.
They're hoping to offer a choice to his left-of-center politics, but a president who is dead set against him.
Well, then we'll have to arrest him.
A stunning remark from President Trump about the winner of the Democratic mayoral primary after a reporter told him that Zohran Mamdani threatened to defy ICE. It provoked this response from Mamdani on social media. Quote, "His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you." On the very day that Zohran Mamdani officially won the Democratic mayoral primary with a 12...
No, Brad Lander is a leftist, dude. Stop saying he's not a leftist. He is. Come on, dude. What's the expectation? Like, especially by American standards, especially by, like, elected official standards, Brad Lander is a leftist.
12-point, 56-44 win over Andrew Cuomo. He got a welcome to the wacky world of the 2025 mayoral race from President Trump.
The only reason why he's not like a actual full-blown leftist is because he's not anti-Israel. I wouldn't even. I think he's even more than Elizabeth Warren is my point. Now, I don't think it's an unfair association to say that you can't be a leftist if you're a liberal Zionist. You know, he's a progressive except for Palestine, classic. But even then, he's like more progressive than the obvious person. Anyway, whatever. Hasan, let it go. He's not going to come on your stream. First of all, what the is this idiotic? Oh, God. Hideo offliner. Permaban. Okay.
Bitch, you think I give a fuck about the New York comptroller coming on my fucking stream? Some of y'all are so stupid, dude.
You think there's a cynical reason as to why I'm saying the things I believe? At what point are you dumb going to realize if I'm saying something, there is no secret reason for why I'm saying it other than I believe it, okay? Holy shit. How many years has it been of people being like, Hasan, if you keep this rhetoric up, you're going to get banned. Hasan, if you keep this rhetoric up, no one is going to come on your stream. Hasan, if you keep this rhetoric up, you know, people are going to get mad. God damn, dude. Anyway, that particular chatter is the most annoying, okay? That's why I banned them. They're unbearable, constantly talking about drama baiting while simultaneously drama baiting. Let's continue.
Who said he hoped a Republican could beat him, or maybe the sitting mayor.
We have a good independent running, Mayor Adams, who's a very good person.
At an unrelated press conference on crime stats, Mayor Adams ducked questions about Trump, preferring to focus on the role of the mayor to let federal immigration agents do their job.
And anyone that is an elected or not should never interfere with federal authorities carrying out their function.
Mamdani said he was humbled by the breadth of his support. Over 540,000 New Yorkers voted for him, saying he is, quote, excited to expand this coalition even further as we defeat Eric Adams and win a city government that puts working people first. Andrew Cuomo is holding his cards close to the vest about whether he will actively campaign on the independent line he has secured. A spokesman said he wants to assess the feelings of more than 1 million independent voters who will be able to have a say in the general election. Extremism, division, and empty promises are not the answer to the city's problems. While this was a look at what motivates a slice of our primary electorate, it does not represent the majority, said a Cuomo spokesman. This as another independent entered the race, Cuban-American biotech engineer Joseph Hernandez, who took a shot at Mamdani's socialist platform.
I was born in Cuba, a country where socialism destroyed opportunity. My family lost everything.
I cannot predict what's going to happen in November except one thing. New Yorkers are energized. New Yorkers are focused, and they're going to come in larger numbers than we've seen before.
So here's the score.
Good analysis, man.
Card for November.
One of my favorite things is when people go, my family lost everything. I hate socialism. I'm from Cuba. My family lost everything in Cuba. And then you look at their family history and their grandparents were getting their eyeballs clawed out by the Batista administration. You know? And it's like, okay, dickhead, why the are you shitting on the dudes who actually liberated your family from the torture regime that was backed by the American government? Suck my dick. Have a little bit of respect, Ted Cruz. No, there is obviously the meta of people who left after. Okay, my family lost their sugar plantation ass, but a lot of dude, it's hilarious. A lot of the expat culture, or a lot of the migrant culture in this country, because they came to America as like refugees, a lot of that culture actually shapes this like weird reactionary bubble. Even if Cuban immigrants themselves actually were escaping Batista, they will still turn around and act like they were escaping Castro. Okay? It's this very funny, completely made up story. This isn't to say that there aren't people who like escaped because, you know, they didn't want to give up their farms or whatever. But like there is a ton of people who just lie and say Castro tortured their family when in fact it's not Castro, it's Batista. Okay? And yeah, Iran, there's another, this meta exists within Iran as well. People being like, oh, we left during the tortures that were taking place during the revolution. And it's like, but then you look up their timeline and it's like they escaped the Shah. What the do you mean? It was the communists or the Islamists that tortured your family. You left during the Shah. It's not lost on me that I think a lot of people, in an effort to fit in, realize that they just have to lie about this shit. Damn, I didn't realize Batista was like that. I like Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, yeah, the Batista bomb. Batista bomb, baby. That's what Batista was doing. Doing a Batista bomb on people's grandparents.
Donnie the Democrat, Curtis Sliwa the Republican, Adams on the independent line, Independents Joseph Hernandez, Jim Walden, and Andrew Cuomo.
Would you say the same about Venezuelans? Every group has this formation. For many that come far after that, they're escaping the harrowing conditions, oftentimes born because of American intervention, whether it be like crippling sanctions or whatnot in Cuba or crippling sanctions or whatnot in Venezuela. But then in an effort to assimilate, in an effort to make a legal application for asylum, they're like, yeah, I hate the communism that has made me eat rats. And then that story that they tell others become their own story. Okay? That's it. Yeah, Vietnamese people are another example. But Vietnamese people are a really interesting example because, like, I talk to Vietnamese people that are around my age and younger, and they're conflicted. Their families are right-wing, right? And their families are anti-communist. But they also simultaneously have a sense of patriotism for what Ho Chi Minh did. Because Vietnam is an independent nation that gets to participate in the global marketplace. So it's like a unique predicament. No, I'm not talking about Jason the Ween, chat. I don't think I've ever asked Jason about his opinions on Vietnam in general. But there are a lot of like younger Vietnamese people in America that are either super radical and like don't have any fear saying that they're socialists or whatever. But then there are some who are like, I'm supposed to hate communism, but also at the same time, I'm supposed to feel pride because communists unify the country and were able to win the war of independence against America. There was a poll in the 2024 election of Vietnamese Americans had the single highest left-right differential by age. That makes total sense. As a Vietnamese Chinese Australian, was brought up hating communism in Vietnam, but my Chinese grandfather was in the Red Army, Lemao.
Mr. President, your beloved New
This is another psychotic statement from Donald Trump.
York City. Your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zohran Mandami, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zohran Mandami.
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. And by the way, they get about 3 times what you get, Ron. If you look at the per capita, Florida gets 1/3 of what New York gets in terms of the numbers. Why don't you give us those numbers?
Yeah, well,
because that's what we should send him.
Yeah, well, like sometimes people say Florida gets more because they count Social Security recipients, but that's not money to the state. Those are seniors that live here. If they moved to North Carolina, you could count it there. So it has no interaction with the state government. They get more in the city and state governments than we get.
Right, substantially.
Ronald Reagan was talking about this on Majority Report. The old deportation orders were shelved by the Obama admin, but have just been reopened. Yeah, it seems like they're trying to hit every avenue they can to get those numbers up. And the numbers up that we're talking about is human beings, dude. We're talking about human beings. Like, just so we can make the most racist, mouth-breathing scumbag feel like this administration is doing something so they don't get angry at the reality that their rent is still going to go up and that their lives, their material conditions are not going to improve. Just so the most racist douchebag feels like the government does actually care about them because this is something that they wanted. Yes, Ronald Reagan is a immigration attorney that is a frequent guest caller on Majority Report.
We're going to be watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. He's, we're going to look at everything, and ideally, he's going to turn out to be much less than a communist. But right now, he's a communist. That's not a socialist. I've always said we will not have socialism in this.
He's saying, a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. Like he's doing the Andy Ogle shit. Oh. Insane, dude. Oh, as an American citizen, you want an election, but we don't like what you have to say? Sorry. We're going to denaturalize you. Psycho shit.
This country in the speeches, I said, well, what? They skipped socialism. And you get a lot of them like that. And you see AOC, she's out there with her, bad IQ. She's out there ranting and raving about how wonderful he is. And look, so far he's winning. He still has a race to win, but so far he's winning, and he has an advantage as a Democrat in New York City. I was there a long time ago, and it was a long time since a Republican won the city. Yeah, but you would think that a Republican would be able to win. Or you have a good independent running, Mayor Adams, who's a very good person. I helped him out a little bit. He had a problem, and he was unfairly hurt over this question. He made a statement to the effect that this is terrible. New York City can't have all these immigrants come in. And like he was indicted the following day. And I said, that was a phony indictment. That it was a phony indictment. That was a Biden indictment. I said, don't feel bad. I got indicted 5 times. every time you opened your mouth. That was a bad group. That was a very dangerous group, I will tell you. These were not nice people. That was the only thing they could do. They had no policy, they had no skill, they had no anything. But they were very good at that. They were vicious, vicious, horrible people. Thank you.
Saying anything like anti-immigrant, especially about New York City, is perhaps the dumbest place you could say. It's one of the most diverse cities on the planet. Literally, a city that's history revolves around people literally coming in to New York as their first point of entry into the nation state. That's what the Statue of Liberty is about. That's where Ellis Island is. It's so insane. Yeah, the U.S. doesn't like foreign democratic elections where a socialist is elected. Now the U.S. doesn't like domestic democratic elections where a socialist is elected. Regime change incoming. Anyway, my statement on Donald Trump's threat to deport me and his praise for Eric Adams, who the president helped out of legal accountability. The president of the United States just threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put in a detention camp, and deported. Not because I have broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you. We will not accept this intimidation. That Trump included praise for Eric Adams and his authoritarian threat is unsurprising, but highlights the urgency of bringing an end to this mayor's time in City Hall. At the very moment when MAGA Republicans are attempting to destroy the social safety net, kick millions of New Yorkers off of health care, and enrich their billionaire donors at the expense of working families, it is a scandal that Eric Adams echoes his president's division, distraction, and hate. Voters will resoundingly reject it in November. Great way to bring this back to the general election. Yes, there's also more that we must discuss. Kirsten Gillibrand has apologized to Mamdani over jihad comments. As you guys know, Kirsten Gillibrand was said some incredibly racist shit of the Brian Lehrer radio show, saying that Zohran Mamdani wants to kill all Jews and do a global jihad. Like shockingly racist shit. Coming from a Democrat, it is shocking. Okay, like that's not even like in the past. Democrats have like condemned Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar under similar Islamophobic terms, but I've never heard a Democrat this closely associated with the city come out and say that. Okay, like you're not Charlie Kirk. Okay, you have to understand. Like this is uniquely racist. This was uniquely racist for a Democrat to do. Under normal circumstances, for totally reasonable statements that Muslim congresspersons make, the Democratic Party will, take the other route, silence, which of course is a tacit endorsement of all the attacks that they're receiving, right? Or sometimes being like, well, people should be more careful of the words that they use, like subtweets. Things like that. Kirsten Gillibrand took it on the chin. Like she took the John Fetterman route, which, by the way, I don't even know if John Fetterman had said something as racist as Kirsten Gillibrand about Zohran. Has John Fetterman said anything like this racist about Zohran? I don't know. It was truly ridiculous. I'm sure he said some shit. He doesn't know what's going on, but like this was wild. Okay. Not yet. He's still processing. Yeah, they haven't told him yet. Out of fears that he'll get a third stroke. Bro, she was hysterical on that phone call. No, absolutely. It was insane. Gillibrand now has apologized to Mamdani. So your phone calls worked. We and many other people literally blasted the phones on her office, demanding a retraction and an apology. And I'm glad that it came. But the very fact that it existed was insane to me. And obviously, she will most likely never recover from this, I think. Austin Allman says, it could be a one-off, but Gillibrand being forced to apologize with a manufactured hysteria over Zohran's refusal to condemn every word in the Arabic language fades without him giving an inch feels like a watershed moment. I think we're playing by a different set of rules now. Yes. That's a hopeful way of looking at it. But yeah, in the past, judging by what took place against Ilhan Omar and judging by what took place against Rashida Tlaib in the past, remember she was censured for saying from the river to the sea, Palestine would be free. Rashida Tlaib was. And the lack of defense for these individuals from the Democratic Party when they were receiving a torrent of hate versus a Democrat actually forced to apologize while other Democratic leaders are also slowly but surely, even if they don't immediately rise to the occasion and offer or issue they're still forced to even if they don't endorse, they are still forced to congratulate the victory, yada, yada, yada. We shall see what happens. The rules change every day. The richest people in the world are mobilizing the Dems to cut Zohran down. That for sure is happening. David says, the question remains, why does she walk into the Lehrer interview without knowing off book what Mamdani had actually said? She sounded frazzled. We're all guessing at what's going on inside her head, but my guess is that the specifics were immaterial to her. She expected to be able to characterize his comments however she pleased without pushback, true, and she has been in a state of disbelief over the last week that isn't how Israel politics works anymore, which finally broke today. Yeah. And Kirsten Gillibrand is far from the only figure that is going to be the recipient of this cold, hard reality that is coming for them. There is no other group or no other advocacy aside from pro-Israel advocacy where actual institutionally important figures can go on national television and say, this guy's a Jew hater. He wants to kill all Jews without any evidence whatsoever. Okay? There are still people who are doing that. Eric Swalwell did that. Richie Torres implied it as well, not to the same degree as Kirsten Gillibrand, because he still has his progressive bona fides, despite the fact that he's Israel's attack dog. Okay? Jonathan Greenblatt still goes on television and lies all the time. In a few weeks, Fetterman will be like, who the hell is Zorro Tahini? He's the Internet Explorer of politicians. I was told that this guy, Zorro Tahini, won the New York City mayoral primaries, and I am very scared. Am Israel high. He is going to be a really bad mayor of Tel Aviv. Oh boy. A primary campaign that pressures Hochul to work with Zohran and raise taxes on the millionaires. This could genuinely get Hochul to switch opinion. Antonio Delgado. Zohran cannot deliver bold change alone. He needs a governor. Okay, see? There are people who are recognizing the attitude shift. Antonio Delgado. Zohran cannot deliver bold change alone. He needs a governor who's willing and ready to work with him. Governor Hochul, whatever, refuses to tax the ultra wealthy or big corporations to achieve affordability for all. If you want change in New York City, we need a change in Albany. Oh boy. Hochul already defending Zohran. Pressure is already working. I don't care if you're the president of the United States. If you threaten to unlawfully go after one of our neighbors, you're picking a fight with 20 million New Yorkers, starting with me. Damn. Yes, queen. Yes, queen. Snap. She snapped. Slay, queen. Yeah. By the end of this process, if this mobilization is moving in this direction, Governor Kathy Hochul is going to be known as Wokel, okay? She's going to be like, I've changed my name. I'm Governor Kathy Wokel. I want to not only raise the tax of the billionaires, I want to criminalize being a billionaire, okay? Kathy Wokel, we ride at dawn. Who's going to tell her about Mahmoud Khalil? Well, one day at a time.
A moment like this is made for Steve Kornacki, and he's joining me now, our national political correspondent. And Steve, what are the big takeaways now that you've crunched all the numbers and we get a sense of that ranked order that voters were able to express their opinions?
Yeah, I mean, an interesting and unusual primary in a couple ways. First of all, the methodology, like you say, using the ranked choice system. Not many places do that. Let's just show you first how that played out. These were the preliminary.
Generous socialist, Venezuelan here. The reactionary aspect of Venezuelan expat is largely born from real degradation of material conditions and status in Venezuela under Chavez and especially Maduro. And you are right that U.S. sanctions played a role in that. But a lot of blame is on the incompetence and outright corruption of Chavez and Maduro. Leftists in the U.S. tend not to pay any heed to the latter of that. Not saying the opposition is any better, but it's not as black and white as the Fidel Cuba situation. I would go so far as say that that is a perfectly fair analysis for especially Maduro, but not for Chavez. And the reason why I would say not for Chavez is because Chavez was a great man. Yes, that. But also because Chavez spent so much time trying to diversify the Venezuelan economy and was met with the same exact forces that were directly aligned with the American Chamber of Commerce and the American CIA that literally successfully and then unsuccessfully tried to coup him. So it's not like Chavez didn't recognize that being a single resource economy was going to be a death sentence for Venezuela. Okay. When the going was good, he did actively try and yield better agricultural production, take some kind of control over the grocery stores. Like the grocery store owners are grocery store owners and media company owners in South American countries are like the most elite business fascists you can ever engage with. So they them over very aggressively, as a matter of fact, and that led to obviously additional complications coming out of the Maduro administration, which basically has been running on Chavez's gains and the Chavista movement in perpetuity as the amount of supporters that he has gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Chavez did do good social stuff, but he ran PDVSA, the oil company, into the ground and was incompetent at running the oil industry. My dad worked in that and explained it to me, but you're correct and very much corrupt fascist aspects of a lot of Venezuelan elites in Gusanos. Chavez was kidnapped. His forced deposition is signed by a judge. All he did back was expanding the course. The guy was restrained to a fault. No, the argument around running the oil company into the ground is the same thing that the Iranian, same thing that British Petroleum said about Iran. That was the fear. I think the best possible way for that to continue is by allowing Chavez to overtake and nationalize and continue working in an advisory role to ensure that the oil production is not degraded. It's still a direct consequence of the Venezuelan oil company was nationalized for a long ass time and only stopped working as well under his latter years. Chavez wasn't a socialist. He was a bourgeois nationalist who consolidated economic, political, and social power. Socialism is democratic and decentralized control of productive forces. Venezuela is the antithesis of this. I know. Real socialism has never been implemented. It's never been tried. Any attempt in the direction of socializing, okay, socialization is utterly meaningless. It has existed in Spain. Brian, kill me, dude. And then also the French Commune, right? I know, chatter. Yes, I know what kind of leftist you are, okay? I know what your tendency is from the way you type this, okay? Real socialism only exists within the Zapatista movement and also within the French Commune and also for a short period. None of these are there is no like real existing, perfectly functioning socialist state. Socialist states are transitional states. There are transitional socialist states. Okay? And there are plenty of transitional socialist states that have tried to move in the direction of socialism. And I'm not going to sit around and be like, no, they suck. I think what's important is to learn from their mistakes. Sankara consolidated power as a bourgeois nationalist. Exactly. All right, let's continue with this.
Area results.
Here's another fake socialist, Zohran Mamdani. Okay. Where are the workers' councils? Why has he not advocated to violently seize control from the capital owners and deliver the means of production back to the working class in his campaigning? What a fake ass Zohran Mamdani is. Okay. Again, fake ass socialist, another bourgeois labor aristocrat born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Okay. Or what were they saying? They were saying that he's like, they were using the classic anti-Semitic trope against Zohran, which I thought was really funny. They were saying he's a rootless cosmopolitan who is controlling the media. It's actually Ugandan Indian Muslims who control the media. A ruthless cosmopolitan who's here to destabilize the superior Western forces, the superior Western civilization. Anyway, you're joking, but there are a lot of ML Union types who say that about him. Ugh, I don't care.
Had these last week. Remember, this is just the first choice votes for everybody that came in last week. More than 10 candidates in this race, and under ranked choice, they start eliminating the candidates, the low-performing candidates, and they
saw conservatives online trying to start to say he's doing takia. That's my favorite. This is my favorite racist trope. I don't know. I mean, I guess this is like when transphobes will say some shit that like trans people don't know about. You know what I mean? Like transphobes will say something that like supposedly trans people are doing, and it's like a part of trans culture somehow, but it's such an extreme edge case or something, and like most normal trans people have no idea what the fuck that even means. Takia is this for Muslims, okay? For those of you who don't know, growing up in a autogynephilia, right? That's like AGP is the example that I was thinking of as well. For like a lot of trans people that don't know what the fuck that is. It's like something that transphobes know very much about, okay? I grew up in a Muslim country for the first 18 years of my life. I never heard this, okay? I never heard this word until I came to the United States of America. And the only reason why I learned about it is because 20 plus years ago, some grifter seeded the word takia among boomers. And the funny thing is most Muslims have never heard of it. I, to this day, have never met a Muslim living in America or living in a Muslim country that knows what this word is. But if you asked back in the day, racist, anti-Islam, the racist Islamophobes, this is the practice of Muslims hiding their true intentions in an effort to infiltrate fifth column style Western civilization. Like, I think at some point, like, these races realize like a lot of the Muslims that live in the Western world are like fairly progressive, a lot more progressive than they are. So they had to, so they had to basically redesign a meme, redesign a word, or redesign like a reason for why they were seeing that Muslims were like more progressive than they thought they were. Yeah, it's that a Muslim can hide his religion by lying to preserve his life. Exactly. And you hear this concept only in the most like extreme Islamophobic places. But since when do most Christians not believe lying is ever morally justified? You'll tell the Nazis, oh yeah, Anne Frank's got a studio in the attic. I'm sure there's some Kantian out there who would never tell any kind of lie, but most people think lying is permissible if you're trying to prevent persecution. Yeah, Zohran is a radical Islamist jihadist, but also he's trying to trans the kids, and his wife is hot, is another. I don't even want to talk about Zoran's wife. I'm so grossed out by people who constantly talk about his wife. Anyway, I don't even want to get into that part, but yeah, basically this is not a known thing in the Muslim world, okay? It's not. Some people say like Shia Muslims hide that they're Shia or something. I don't even know about that. I am not Shia. But this is not like a common practice where Muslims are hiding that they are Muslim. There's not a thing. I'm doing takia by saying I'm Muslim, but also simultaneously abiding by progressive values and even drinking alcohol at different times. You aren't enough of a jehe to know about takia? Okay. Maybe things have changed. Maybe the meta has changed in Islam, in Turkey as well. How can we be sure you're not a secret Olevi? Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I respect my dede. That's funny. Alevi is a Turkish thing. It's like Alawites, but it's not exactly like Alawites in Syria. It's a different subclassification, subcategorization of Muslims in Turkey that have been ruthlessly persecuted. Anyway, why are we even talking about this? Holy shit. Oh no, the lid. My lid is blown. Okay, my cover is blown. They now know I'm doing taqiyya. Okay, let's keep going.
They look at the ballots and who were the second choices of those voters, and they reallocate everything. So that's what happened. And it went from 43 for Mamdani, 36 for Cuomo. You saw a distant third was Brad Lander with 11%. When everything got reallocated, it ends up looking like this, that 12.5644% margin for Mamdani over Cuomo. Now, what's interesting is, besides the system itself, what went into that 50?
Taqiyya is the dumbest thing to make fun of. It's basically like Christians hid the fact that they didn't believe in the Trinity in the Roman Empire. Shiites hid that they're Shiites. Yeah, okay, but like the overwhelming majority of the Muslim world, at least like the Sunnis, myself included, have no idea what taqiyya is, okay? And its practical application in contemporary American society is that every Muslim is hiding that they're actually Muslim in an effort to infiltrate American society and ruin it from within. So obviously I'm going to make fun of it. Calm down, someone you banned. You're making it seem like I'm enforcing like some kind of anti-Shia sentiment here when my boy right here is Shia himself, okay?
6%, because when we talk about elections, it's almost like a cliche. What's one of the things we always say? Well, older people tend to vote more than younger people. There's going to be higher turnout with senior citizens, and it's going to be a struggle for these campaigns to get young people out. Not really what happened here. Let me show you this. One way of breaking down the results. We looked at all of the neighborhoods in New York City, and we looked at the median age.
Abi TSK'daki Gülenciler Konya'da kapılarına rakı şişeleri falan koyuyorlardı. Seküler gözükmek için. Bizim bir komşu vardı mecliste bomba atan pilot. Seküler falan zannediyorduk. I guess the Gülenists were doing taqiyya in Turkey. In order to present themselves as secular, they would put alcoholic beverages outside of their house.
Age in New York City, and we basically classify the neighborhoods. Is its median age older than New York City's average, or is it younger? And look at the difference you see here. In the older neighborhoods, we knew that Cuomo was doing better with older voters, and a lot of folks thought that's why he had an advantage over Mamdani, because traditionally that's how you win elections. Well, Cuomo won those older neighborhoods by 7 points. Now, the turnout level in those older neighborhoods compared to the last mayor's race in 2021, it was basically flat. It was up 1%. Now look at the other side of it. The younger neighborhoods, we knew that's where Mamdani was drawing more of his support. He wins there by almost 20 points, 18-point margin over Cuomo in the younger neighborhoods. But look at the turnout in those places compared to...
Seems like the youth is trying to globalize the enchiladas.
The last mayor's race, up 14%. So you see two things here. Mamdani squeezed more out of the younger neighborhoods than Cuomo got out of the older neighborhoods. But then there was sort of a bonus there for Mamdani because the turnout in those neighborhoods was higher than it was in the older neighborhoods. That's a different story than we usually tell when we look at elections. And it's a big ingredient what Mamdani pulled off here, not just beating Cuomo, but beating him by double digits. And you raised that question of would Cuomo go on to the general election and take a shot third party in the fall? Does the magnitude of his loss in this primary, not just losing it by 12, you have to wonder, does that affect the decision making for him as well?
Steve, that's so interesting. It tells us so much about where the energy is and certainly really gives us something to track as we head toward the general election. You are
1 week ago, we shocked the establishment and redrew the
New
political
video
map,
time.
where the campaign relentlessly focused on the needs of working people. Since then, a lot of people have asked me if I was surprised by the results. In some ways, I was. We always thought our victory would come after multiple rounds of ranked choice voting. So when we got more first-round votes than Eric Adams got in 7 rounds in the last election, it was astonishing. But in other ways, this was always the plan. We wanted to rebuild a coalition that had...
The only taqiyya he's doing is hiding how much he wants to help the American people, because the American people, when they hear someone who wants to help them, get scared and they go, oh, that might be socialism. That's the taqiyya, okay, that every leftist should be doing, not the Islamic style taqiyya. What is this? Is it one of the most haram things for a Sunni to do? Wait, what? It is one of the most haram things for Sunni Muslims, while it is considered okay for Shias. It is one of the main dividing factors between the two sects. It is common word in Iran because Shia Islam allows it. Or hiding that you are Shia is the most common usage. Can we please stop? Please, I don't care. That's not what any of this is about in the Western world, okay? It is yet another one of these things that Reddit atheists and like rabid Islamophobes took and started using to make it seem. I told you what the American version of it is, okay? I told you what the American version of this is. And there is a reason why so many people, even Muslims themselves, have not actually heard of this, okay? Have heard of this terminology. A lot of New York City registered Dems voted for Trump in 2024, including Latino and East, South Asian heavy neighborhoods in Queens, where Mamdani ran up huge margins. It is very likely that several thousand people that voted for Trump voted for Mamdani. Leave New York City analysis to the locals. Hassan's Takia alibi is by having Kaya Dog in the house to confuse the r/atheism. Yes. Yes, Iraqi wizard already explained it. Basically, there's a passage from Hadith said that some friends of the Prophet that allied with Imam Ali, original Shias, let's say, hid their allegiance to Imam Ali when they visited the capital when Abu Bakr was appointed the highest religious leader of Muslims against the wishes of the Prophet. They feared that they would be prosecuted. Current imams in Iraq and Iran have recognized this fact and issued a fatwa. So it's a Shia thing. Oh my God. Now I understand why black people tell you to stay out of their business. Okay, but I don't tell people to stay out of Muslim people's business either. Okay? It doesn't matter. But because we have a very neurodivergent community, they're just like singularly focused on this now. And everyone wants to, not only is it a taste of neurodivergence, it's also a taste of wanting to be the most knowledgeable in the chat. Okay? When these two forces are combined, it creates this volcano, this faucet of information in the chat where everybody's like, no, you don't understand. I'm super knowledgeable on this and I'm super autistic. So I can't stop myself from basically writing Wikipedia articles in the chat. That's it. That's all it is. It's not like ill-intentioned either. It's like, it's just people trying to vomit out as much information as possible to inform others. So it's fine.
Afraid over years of disappointment and neglect to win people back to a Democratic Party that puts working people first. So let's break it down. Last November, New York City saw some of the biggest shifts towards Donald Trump of anywhere in the country. Much of it took place in working class and immigrant neighborhoods. A few days after the election, we went to Hillside Avenue in Queens and Fordham Road in the Bronx, not to lecture, but to listen. And what we heard was a desire to bring down the cost of living. That was our focus, and many of those voters came back. Brighton Beach went for Trump by 44 points. Last week, we won it by 16. College Point was a plus 11 Trump neighborhood. We took it by 8 points. We saw similar or even bigger swings in Bath Beach, Astoria Heights, and the North Shore of Staten Island. The headline is clear. We can win back voters many have written off if we give them something to vote for, not just tell them what to be against. When Eric Adams eked out a win by 7,000 votes 4 years ago, he called it a mandate and pronounced himself the new face of the Democratic Party. Even then, it was a little ridiculous. But in some neighborhoods, he did put up impressive margins. Take Flatbush, for example. Eric Adams dominated there, double digits ahead of his next rival. On Tuesday, there was also a double-digit victory, except it was for us, over Andrew Cuomo. We flipped Crown Heights by 45 points, North Corona by 33, and Jamaica by a staggering 57 points. These are the outer borough voters that Eric Adams said he'd bring with him to City Hall.
Open presents, thank you for the 100 gifted subs.
Whether we're talking about young voters, older voters, or just plain disaffected New Yorkers, no campaign in recent history has been as successful at driving new voter registrations, especially in the 100 days before the election. Just take a look at this graph. According to the Times, in the 14 days before the registration deadline, about 37,000 people registered to vote. That's over 10 times the number of new registrations over the same period of time in the 2021 mayoral primary. As a result, we won big with zero prime voters, New Yorkers who had not voted in any recent mayoral primary. For instance, in Gravesend, at least 32% of all voters were first-time primary voters. Most campaigns focus on triple primes, New Yorkers who voted in the last 3 primaries. But this strategy ignores most of our city, yet we knew that we could turn them out if they saw themselves in our policies. We ran a campaign that tried to talk to every New Yorker. Whether I could speak their language, आपकी वजह से हमने $8 million raise किया है, 6 लाख से ज़्यादा दरवाजे खटखटाए हैं, or just tried. Que se comprometa al bienestar. All the words are new! And the coalition that came out on Tuesday reflected the mosaic of these 5 boroughs. We won South Asian neighborhoods by huge margins in places like City.
Bubblegum Bunny Girl, what the? We got a new oiler in the chat. there ain't no way Bubblegum Bunny Girl is also from Qatar, right? The glorious oil-rich nation of Qatar. There's no way. The emerald of the Gulf. My beauty, Qatar.
Line, Ozone Park, Jamaica Hills. We won Latino neighborhoods like Corona, Washington Heights, Pelham Bay, and Woodhaven. We won many of the same Chinese voters that turned out for Trump in Flushing.
Okay, I'm bored. I'm sorry. I've heard it a lot. All right. No disrespect. Let's get to
overseas around.
Let's get to some Iran updates, and then we're going to talk about the Trump situation. Shout out to Zohran's media team. They do a great job with these videos. Yes. I know. I'm being disrespectful to Zohran. There's a lot more news to talk about. Hasan Reactions is one of the best ones in the React channel.